isolated, cold, and quiet. Away from the hustle and bustle of city life along the shores of Cumbria. Starlingmare is a town that very few people care to remember, including its residents. You will find that in this port town, the people are being affected by something that they do not understand. Very few people do. In the night, these people, they can't see what you will see. They won't hear what you will hear. And if you're anything like them, when it's all over, you won't even remember it happened. Episode 1. St. David's Legacy. Written by James D. Lenane. Randy is carrying a large trunk of private records across the quad in one hand. In his other hand he is holding his rifle. In the distance, Atticus Griggs exits the building with a furious expression. His shirt is scruffy and his nose is bent and bleeding. He sends away his assistant, Stephanie, who is trying to tend to his broken nose. Atticus stumbles forward, out of breath, and calls after Randy.
You think you could take even more from me than you already have, and expect me to stay down? Think you have any right to anything in my town?
Randy slowly stops, a look of anger and confusion building behind his eyes. Atticus slowly makes his way across the quad, gesturing all around him.
All this was my work, my blood's work. Generations of wise men and workhorses building brick by brick the legacy that my father left for me.
Randy turns his head to meet Atticus's eyes. They both have a deep sorrow come over them when Atticus mentions his father, but neither want the other to see. Atticus stops a good 10 feet away from Randy. Despite his anger, he knows just how fast and hard Randy can hit.
Father and you, I never got it. I never fully grasped why he saw your pain so clearly, but I was somehow made of stone as a child.
Randy looks at the rifle in his hand. The rifle that once belonged to his mentor, Atticus's father. He knows he can never explain the task that he has been left with. A task that Atticus could never do.
But I know there are no mysteries for you. No, you knew him so well, like old school chums, Mother said. Well, you didn't know about this.
Atticus takes out from his blazer pocket a folded up piece of old paper and begins to read aloud.
£100 between Griggs, Jeremiah and O'Brien Donovan for the property of number 6 Ferndale Road, Davidswealth, Lancashire, on the 29th of October, 1899.
Randy looks at him with shock upon hearing that date. A year before he was born, in that very house, the Griggs family had already bought it. And for such little money. Atticus sees that he's chipped Randy's armor. Taking this opportunity, he starts closing the distance.
Oh, yes. It's not a pleasant thought, is it? That the man you had dedicated all your best efforts to wasn't perfect. Makes you wonder if he knew the fire was coming.
Randy, in his sadness, glares at Atticus with a flare of true disgust that he could bring something so terrible up.
Makes you wonder if your bog-trotting parents knew the man that sent their cravenous souls to hell and worse still, dragged you out to live without them.
Randy, with one hand, throws the massive trunk aside, clearing nearly the entire quad, storming up to stand chest to chin against the small man. Atticus barely flinches. Having much experience with Randy, he knows that he can pick at him a little more before Randy would think of hurting him.
Are you hurting? Are you lonely now, living in whatever hole you've found down there in Starlingmare? I've heard what they think of you, you know.
Randy looks away, above Atticus, and sees that the sun is getting low in the sky. He's running out of time.
The mad poacher from up on the hill, booted out of high society for assaulting Mr. Griggs.
As the sunlight leaves gradually, the waves of that strange, invisible force that Randy knew was coming begin washing over the town. We see lights turning out, students at their desks closing their eyes, and Atticus's face begins to relax slowly.
The old fool, responsible for bringing down the Hog's Heart Inn with 4 people sleeping inside, but who never took the blame.
Randy knows that only he and few others are immune to this strange force, and before long, Atticus will feel this overwhelming desire to rest. Atticus tries to focus on Randy, but is tiring rapidly, the magic working its way into his mind. He only wishes to be done with this conversation. He sits down on the bench next to him.
A peachy few decades he left me with. A tub trading company. A family scattered so far across the country I heard about my siblings' funerals 2 weeks too late. And you.
Atticus is slowly falling asleep, but is so full of anger that he convinces himself it's just his headaches exhausting him. Randy sits alongside him.
I wanted so badly for you to get caught. Something, anything, to tie you to the crime. I went to the station every day for a week, asking them what they'd found. But nothing.
Randy sighs slightly, looking at the closest thing he has to a brother drift off to sleep. He thinks about this legacy that their father left for him. Night after night of combat and mystery. He looks at his hands, only the beginning of a long line of wounds and scars and bruises that he sustained over the years.
I don't know why I cared so much that you got what you deserved. It wouldn't have changed the fact that I never did. This legacy, I think, has finally killed me.
Randy stands up and collects the trunk and begins to walk off, but then stops to fish out the deed from Atticus's pocket. He watches this slumbering, furious man. But then readies himself and jogs off. He has a lot to hunt tonight. It seems like this mystery will have to wait. Starlingmare is an interconnected mystery podcast series, serving as a prelude to a potential animated series. To find out more about Starlingmare, go to starlingmare.tumblr.com. Will you piece together these intricate mysteries? Or will you, like so many others, forget why you even came here?